everybody, welcome to the channel. Hey guys, we're your hosts Em and Jay, and today we're talking about the 5th episode of Season 3 of Netflix's She-Ra. This episode is basically set up for the finale, and takes place in a somewhat dreamlike state. When Catra activated the machine, instead of opening a portal, it caused reality to collapse in on itself. The effects of reality collapsing kinda reminded us of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and to be honest, it just felt like we could be watching that movie instead of this. This show seems to have a lot of influences, and I'm not sure if it's intentional, but it can get kind of distracting. Anyway, this episode takes a look at what might have happened if everything had gone according to plan back when the Horde attacked Thamor in the beginning of the series. And it also kind of works as a recap of the series so far, since there are so many flashbacks to events and moments that have happened. This episode begins with Adora waking up in her bed in the Fright Zone. Catra is there and asks her when she started sleeping in. At first, Adora is very confused and upset, saying there was something she needed to fix. Catra tells her she must have been dreaming about work, and tells her that everything's perfect. Adora accepts this and gets out of bed. She gets ready to head out, but this seems to trigger flashbacks, but she's able to brush them off pretty easily and follow Catra. It seems like no one remembers what happened before Catra pulled the lever, except for Adora, who is just writing them off as dreams. I guess this is Catra's ideal world, because she keeps saying everything is perfect, and I can't imagine Adora would want to go back to the Horde after everything she's learned about them. Plus, Catra's the one who pulled the lever, so maybe that has something to do with it. Every Horde member that the two pass in the hallway is praising Adora. She's not used to this and asks what the deal is. Catra informs her that she's a hero because the mission at Thamor went so well. This triggers more flashbacks of what actually happened, but it seems like they're replaced with different memories as Adora gets excited about defeating the rebels. She and Catra start messing around the way they used to, and they're getting along well like in the old days. Things around them slowly start disappearing, like an entire hallway. Adora questions this, but Catra insists it's always been like that. Adora ends up agreeing with her and they move on. I do think the pacing in this episode is a little slow. I think the audience can figure out what's going on pretty quickly, but it chooses to take its time with what could have been. The two arrive at the locker room and find that Catra set up a surprise party for Adora. In the actual timeline, Catra says that they're going to start having parties when they get back to the Fright Zone after she experiences her first party in the Crimson Waste. This shows that this is supposed to be the perfect world, but this party sucks. They made a cake out of a week's worth of Kyle's rations, and only Kyle's rations. He even says that he's hungry, but it's worth it for Adora. So the party really just consists of them eating this cake in the locker room. The party they had in the Crimson Waste was way better than this. And even in this perfect universe, Kyle still gets bullied? He never did anything to deserve this, yet the narrative just loves to beat him down. It's so mean-spirited and unnecessary. Adora and Catra start playfully roughhousing and end up knocking the cake out of Kyle's hand. And of course everyone blames Kyle for it. This starts a food fight, but Adora panics when she realizes that the cake says Mara now. But Catra distracts Adora by shoving cake in her face. So Adora ignores this glitch in the Matrix for now. Shadow Weaver comes into the locker room saying that she wants to speak to Adora alone, but she's also affectionate to Catra and being nice to her for once. And Catra smiles as Adora leaves with Shadow Weaver. This is actually a pretty interesting interaction, because it implies that Catra doesn't mind being second fiddle as long as she feels valued and appreciated by those around her. I'm also curious to know if Shadow Weaver actually wants a good relationship with Catra or not. Does this reflect how Shadow Weaver actually feels? Or is she forced to act this way because Catra's the one who pulled the switch and triggered this alternate reality? Shadow Weaver praises Adora's leadership, saying that she didn't initially believe that her team was ready, but Adora was able to carry them to victory. She also says that Hordak is very impressed and he's giving her a new mission. They look over the Fright Zone through a window, and Shadow Weaver says that this is everything that Adora's ever wanted and everything is perfect, mirroring what Catra said earlier. But Adora sees ominous flashes of light, and also Madame Raz. I don't think we've seen her since episode 3. She's been mentioned a few times, but it's weird to see her show up here. Adora is upset by this, but Shadow Weaver doesn't notice any of it. She tells Adora to go to the meeting room to get her new assignment, so she drops it and just follows along. Adora goes to the Force Captain meeting, and Scorpia introduces herself. Adora responds, but then Scorpia gets pretty hostile. She says she doesn't like her and it's just a gut feeling she has. She probably sees Adora as competition for Catra, even without her memories, but they don't know each other in this perfect world. I guess that means Catra's not actually into Scorpia, which I would say has been pretty obvious to everyone except for Scorpia. She then starts making fun of her hair and her name, saying that she gets it, everyone adores her. I do wonder how Adora got her name in this series. In the original, Hordak knew who he was kidnapping, but in this version he accidentally brought her through a portal, and he seemed to have no interest in her, so maybe Shadow Weaver named her? Which might say something about Shadow Weaver. But that fish guy addresses the room to start the meeting. I do wish that they had switched this Horde Sergeant guy with someone that we knew. Grizzler, Octavia, maybe Mantenna. This might just be a personal opinion, but I can't help but feel like this guy's a little underwhelming. He doesn't have the most interesting design, but he gets more lines than anyone else. I just feel like he could have easily been replaced with anybody. He congratulates Adora on her victory at Thamor, and the other force captains cheer for her except for Scorpia. He says their next mission is going to be at the Selenius Sea Gate, and that they'll be heading out in 1 week. But while he's talking, someone throws a note to Adora. It has the word Mara written on it, which makes her uneasy. The fish guy then says that they might have to come face to face with a princess, as he shows images of the princesses. This causes Adora to have more flashbacks, and she can't ignore it anymore. Things get worse when she notices that the projector has disappeared, but everyone else acts like there never was a projector, so she ends up running off. Adora keeps having flashbacks as she runs, but she's forced to stop when she sees a hallway has been overtaken by this light, only for it to disappear as soon as it appeared. Catra calls out to Adora asking what's wrong, and Adora asks if she wrote this mysterious note, although she wasn't in the briefing, so that's pretty unlikely. But Catra takes a look at the note and sees that it's just a blank piece of paper. Adora starts panicking because nothing makes sense, and she keeps insisting that she has to remember something. This ends up triggering flashbacks for Catra too. Catra smacks Adora partially because she's still in denial over everything, and partially because she's still mad at Adora for what happened. She gets really upset over this, but Catra claims that she was freaking out and that was freaking her out. Catra keeps playing along with the scenario, saying that Adora just needs some fresh air. She tries to protest only to be dragged outside, and the scenery changing immediately, so all of a sudden she and Catra are on an elevated platform. Catra insists that Adora just needs to relax and this'll all pass. Right now everything's perfect, and soon they'll be ruling the planet together. But Adora questions if that's really what she wants. Catra insists that's what they've wanted all along, and everything will be perfect as long as they stay together. But Adora still isn't convinced, questioning what would happen if they didn't stay together, and why Catra can't see the ominous lighting effects. But Catra insists that Adora is just seeing things, and that they will stay together. So basically, Catra only wants two things: to stay with Adora and to rule Etheria with an iron fist. But really she wants power over anything else, since she refused to leave with Adora when she chose her own path. Basically choosing an abusive evil empire that has never valued her, not to mention kidnapped and abused her, over her sister. Catra has been extremely resentful to Adora for leaving, refusing to understand that she left the Horde, not Catra, and has spent most of the series trying to guilt trip Adora into coming back to this abusive environment, all for her own wants, not for Adora's. Catra doesn't seem to care about what Adora wants or thinks. It's all about ruling Etheria by any means necessary, even if that means hurting Adora. But a part of me wonders if this is really what Catra wants, or if it's just what she was conditioned to want by said evil empire. Lonnie, Kyle, and Rogelio show up saying they have big news, and calling for them to come down. The two end up teleporting down, but only Adora notices. Lonnie says that they're heading to Selenius tonight, and Adora questions this, saying that they were supposed to head out in a week. Everyone tells her that it's already been a week. She ends up panicking, saying that she knows this is all wrong, even if no one else can see it. Catra tries to tell her that everything's okay, but Adora isn't having it anymore. She says that everyone keeps saying it's perfect, but she knows it's not, but this causes her to remember Scorpia, who was the only person who wasn't happy with this perfect world. So she runs off to find her. She confronts Scorpia in a hallway, yelling about how she doesn't think things are perfect. Scorpia pushes her away, saying she values personal space. I guess that means in a perfect world, Catra doesn't know Scorpia, and Scorpia keeps her hands to herself. Adora mostly ignores this and keeps going on about how she has to get into Hordak's sanctum because that's where all her memories end. Scorpia tries to stab her with her stinger, but Adora's being so erratic that she ends up missing. Adora keeps going on about how everyone keeps saying things are perfect, including Catra, which ends up triggering memories in Scorpia. Scorpia starts rationalizing what Catra did to Entrapta, which makes her realize that things are wrong. It's a little worrying to see her rationalizing Entrapta's Catra's demise, but I guess we'll have to worry about that later. They just end up teleporting to Hordak's lab because time and space is collapsing, so now they just have to get past the guards. But Scorpia panics because she's still not on board with everything, which causes them to argue and alert the guards to their presence. Time ends up glitching again and the guards are knocked out. Apparently Scorpia stung them between time jumps, so that's convenient. But then the door to Hordak's lab disappears and they have to find another way in anyway. I'm not crazy about the pacing of this episode. Most of it is characters running around and being confused, and I just want to move on now. Adora spots Madame Razz and decides to chase her, with Scorpia following suit, mostly because she doesn't know what else to do. But Razz always seems like she's one hallway ahead of them. But the corridors eventually lead them to Hordak's lab. Once inside, Adora says that Scorpia can go back to hating her when they get this straightened out. But Scorpia says if they can pull this off, then she'll just dislike her instead of actually hate her. That's nice, I guess. But they find that the lab is empty, and the portal generator missing. Adora racks her brain for answers and manages to remember Catra pulling the switch and the Sword of Protection, but they overhear Imp and Hordak on their way to the lab, forcing them to hide. The two of them come in and it's supposed to be menacing, while Adora and Scorpia are shaking behind the desk, hoping that he doesn't notice them. But honestly, after everything we learned about Hordak, he's just not that threatening anymore. Sorry, big guy. For a second it looks like the coast is clear, only for Imp to show up and scream in their faces. They make a break for it and the lab is consumed by that light. It ends up engulfing Scorpia, leaving Adora alone. Apparently this light sucks everything it touches into the void, so Scorpia, Hordak, and Imp have basically been erased from existence. While it was interesting to see Adora and Scorpia interact together, ultimately nothing was accomplished in this scene. I guess if they managed to remember the conversation they had in the lab after all this is over, it could improve their relationship later. Adora runs from the light and ends up running into Madame Razz. Adora has a lot of questions, including if this is even real. Madame Razz says it is real, but there's still time to fix it, before they end up getting separated by the fright zone falling apart around them. Madame Razz calls to Adora and tells her to find her in the woods before she disappears behind the rubble. As Adora's climbing out, Lonnie demands to know where she's been. She still hasn't snapped out of things yet, so she can't tell that everything's falling apart. Adora asks where Kyle and Rogelio are, but Lonnie doesn't even remember them. Apparently they got sucked into the void. But she starts to remember after Adora pushes more, and can finally tell that something's wrong. They're forced to run, but despite Adora's best efforts, she can't save Lonnie, so she continues on alone. She ends up coming across Catra and two of the kids that we haven't seen since episode 3. Honestly, we forgot they existed since it's been so long. Maybe Catra is friends with them in this version of reality, because the last time we saw them, they didn't seem to get along. Adora drags Catra away, leaving the other two. I guess she doesn't care if they get sucked into the void. Adora insists that they need to leave now, but Catra keeps blowing her off, even though she's having flashbacks too. So Adora knocks her out with a stun baton and carries her out of the building. She flees the fright zone as it completely collapses into the void. Unfortunately, Catra wakes up and starts fighting with Adora. The skid crashes and they continue their fight on the ground. Catra's upset about being kidnapped, but Adora says that they have to get out of the fright zone and she won't leave her behind again, because Adora still has to blame herself for that, even though she wasn't in the wrong when she left the Horde. Adora offered to take Catra with her, but she's the one who turned her back on Adora. Adora really needs to stand up for herself and stop blaming herself for Catra. Instead, Catra says that Adora needs to just stay with her because they finally have everything they ever wanted. First of all, the fright zone is literally gone, so that's not even an option anymore. And secondly, Catra really needs to stop guilt-tripping Adora. She continuously blames other people for everything that goes wrong in her life, but she has options that she refuses to take. Instead, she keeps trying the same thing over and over again, and refusing to leave a bad situation even though she knows it's bad. This is just really toxic behavior. Catra's eventually forced to accept reality when she sees the void closing in on them. Adora is begging Catra to help her fix this, while Catra flashes back to the promise they made when they were children, that everything would be okay as long as they stayed together. Maybe Adora should just tell it like it is instead of begging. This is the bed Catra made for herself and now she has to lie in it. Catra's the one who broke the world, so she should be the one to fix it instead of forcing Adora to clean up her mess. But instead, Catra attacks Adora and says she'll never go with her because Adora just has to ruin everything, says the girl who broke reality. Adora still tries to reach out to her, saying that everything will be destroyed if they don't stop it, but Catra just says that she'd rather let that happen than let Adora win, because Catra's never been rational, so why would she start now? As if if that isn't bad enough, she actually tries to drag herself and Adora into the void, killing them both. But Adora manages to separate herself from Catra, and even though she tries to reach out to her, Catra purposely lets herself fall into the void, forcing Adora to go on without her. She breaks down and cries in the middle of the woods. I don't blame her, she's had a tough day, but Catra also brought this on herself. Madame Razz finds her, and she's still calling her Mara. It's probably not worth trying to correct her at this point. Adora tells her she wasn't able to save anyone else, and Razz tells her it's not too late, but she has to act quickly if she wants to bring everyone back. Adora asks how she would know that, and Razz tells her this has all happened before. Apparently when Mara moved the planet, which I'm sure would have some serious consequences, including death. But Adora gets really upset, saying that she was so afraid of becoming another Mara and destroying the planet the way Mara did, and now all her fears are happening. This really bothers me because first of all, we don't know the whole story with Mara, and I don't feel like it's fair to judge her without knowing everything that happened. Secondly, Adora did mess up, but not in the way that she's saying. You guys went into the Crimson Waste without communicating with the rest of the Princess Alliance, so Glimmer ended up wasting time arguing with her mom, time that they did not have. Maybe you guys could have formed a plan before you even went to the Crimson Waste. So Adora is acknowledging that she messed up, but she's not recognizing the actual mistake she made. Not to mention losing Entrapta in the first place because of what happened at the Princess Prom. Everything that goes wrong in this series is because the main characters messed up, and we're supposed to sympathize with them even though they never learn from their mistakes. But Madame Razz thunks her on the head with her staff, saying that Mara didn't destroy the world, she saved it. She doesn't elaborate, but she says that Adora can save the world too. She says Adora needs to go back to the beginning and find the sword, but Adora's confused, saying that she tried that at Hordak's lab, but the portal wasn't there. Madame Razz tells her that wasn't the beginning, and says she doesn't need to understand, she just has to remember. Does she mean when she first found the sword in the Whispering Woods? Adora takes it to mean she needs to find Glimmer and Bow, who she just remembered exists. Razz tells her to hurry, so she runs off while Madame Razz walks into the light. Was that really necessary? The episode ends with Catra dragging herself out of the void. Her arm and face have been corrupted, so I guess she was just being dramatic when she threw herself in earlier, cause she clearly has no intention of disappearing, like Madame Razz did. Overall, we can see what they were trying to go for with this episode, we just think the execution could have been better, and the pacing was a little slow. I think this episode lacked the emotional impact that it really needed to be successful. Adora left the Horde in episode 2, and she's never looked back. She never really contemplated on what she lost, even though the Horde was her family for most of her life. She didn't even think about Catra for most of the series, and she was her closest friend, basically her sister, and she never thought about anybody else. It's the same problem we had back in episode 9 when Adora confronted Lonnie, saying that she had to save her friends, and Lonnie said that they were her friends, basically that Adora had betrayed her, but we never got to see any kind of friendship between Adora and Lonnie. We were just told about it in this instance. Now this episode is supposed to show us what Adora lost when she left the Horde, and the future she could have had, but since she was never shown missing any of this, or anyone, it doesn't have the emotional impact that it could have had, so seeing all this now is kind of hollow. The show could really benefit if they focus more on interpersonal relationships. This makes sense for Catra since she was never able to let go of Adora, but ultimately I don't think this episode really changed anything for Adora herself. She's sad she didn't get to save anyone, but that's ultimately just in her heroic nature. She's still worried about destroying the world, and now she's going to get the best friends squad back together. And in the end, the show always ends up coming down to the best friends squad anyway. But that's our take on the episode. What did you guys think? Next episode is the season finale, so we'll see what's in store for us. But we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment down below. And if you enjoyed this video, you can leave a like and subscribe to our channel to see more content from us. And we'll see you all in the next video. Bye everyone. Bye guys.